You know what? Blunty, let's talk about a company that's not too controversial, and then I didn't, TBS is generally well liked, but sometimes controversial a little bit. I think we should try to really focus on a company that is not controversial and that everybody likes. Crap.
That's very straight across the board. Always gives you the good info. Yeah.
So Red Cat has had another earnings call. That's one of the disadvantages of being a public company is that once a quarter, you have to do an earnings call where you basically lie to your investors. No, I'm sorry. I take that back. That is a bold claim that a CEO would disagree with, that you try to tell investors that everything is going great and they should keep investing in your company without lying, because that would be an SEC violation and no one would do that.
Yeah.
And you and I are going to talk about this because I think that I want to try to cut through some of the BS that I think is inherent to an earnings call.
I think starting on the last one, or maybe the one before this, we were starting to go like, hey, we're getting a different tune every time, and it always sounds like a bunch of garbage. And so that's been getting worse and worse.
So by the way, there are links in the video description, in the show notes. If you can actually listen to the whole earnings call, if you would like to hear this for yourself, there's also a transcript that Blunty. Did you listen to it or did you just read the transcript?
I listened to it and pulled the transcript as well.
Wow. You're so devoted to the news.
Yeah.
I didn't listen to it. All right. Where do you want to start? Well, you've got some quotes here in the... Well, I didn't actually put the quotes in the show notes because they were really long, but let's just start with one of them.
Maybe show the show notes. So
I can put them on screen. Yeah, I'll put them on screen. Where do you want to start?
The best way to go, because I just picked out basically everything that had to do with Fat Shark. So let's just give you a couple quotes about Fat Shark here and give you an idea where they're at. Anybody who's been listening to the show for a long time has heard a lot of these earnings calls before, and you know how they've been talking about Fat Shark. So I think you might find this interesting. Okay, so Fat Shark has new products coming. That is the first sentence that was like, oh, really?
Really? Isn't that nice?
We've been talking about for a while that, like, is the HDO3 like actually coming? Like, what is happening with Fat Shark? Is Fat Shark making a new goggle? Are they even doing support anymore? So,
my expectation, based on nothing, was that Fat Sharks was going to move away from analog and double down on HD0 and SharkBite. And that was going to be because any company that is making purely analog stuff is on the decline. Not that analog is dead. It won't be dead for a long time. But when you're a company, you want to be on the upswing. If you're on the downswing, it doesn't matter how long that tail is, your days are numbered. And so I was like, okay, they're going to dive into HD0. That's going to be the future of the company. And now HD0 and Fat Shark have gone their separate ways. I don't know the behind the scenes, but is that true? Do you agree?
It seems to be the case that, basically all of that stuff has been pushed away. The only thing I think that's still in production or seems to be in production is that what they call a test goggle still is the
Scout HD.
The Scout HD, which seems to be the only thing they still have like in relation to the two.
So then
also we haven't been 100% clear that the HD0 VRX or the SharkBite VRX is not in production anymore, but that is assumed to be the case. We don't know that.
So we're like, okay, well, what do you got, Fat Shark? What do you got? You just going to make more analog goggles? Good luck with that.
So, Fat Shark has new products coming. So people were asking and stuff, and he says, so the last quarter, to be very frank, we had a lot less Fat Shark revenue in the quarter, mostly because they're at the end of one product cycle going into a new product cycle. And when that happens, it's very similar to the iPhone. No one likes to buy iPhones in August when the new iPhone's coming out in September. So we expect the revenue to come back up in that phase. Now, for anybody who like knows Fat Shark, that's hot garbage. That's not real.
I read that paragraph, and that was where my I'm selling a line to investors bullshit detector went off. Because, like, the end of a product cycle, well, first of all, analog is not really the end of a product cycle. Analog is, I'm not seeing numbers from behind the industry, so I could be wrong, but my take is that analog is in a slow decline. So like 2 years ago when DJI came out, over a whole bunch of people went to DJI and ditched analog entirely. And so there was like, when DJI FPV came out, there was a big dip, my guess is, and now we're on a sort of a slow trickling decline. But It's not the end of a life cycle. And then if that was the end of a life cycle, HC0 and SharkBite would have been the beginning of the next life cycle. And Fat Shark was like, this is our new product. Actually, we think that guy stinks, so we don't want to do business with him. Bye. Which was a voluntary, like, that's different than, hey, we're just coming out with a new version of the iPhone.
Yeah. I mean, it just doesn't track. Like, the words don't track to reality. Like, if you look at, like, no one likes to buy iPhones in August when the new iPhone is coming out in September. That is suggesting that someone is not buying a Fat Shark product because they're expecting the new Fat Shark product to be about to drop. HDO2 dropped in 2019. That's not a thing. That's not real. That's what I'm saying.
And,
so, like,
the product.
Waiting on
what product are they waiting on, Blunty? It's the HC0 goggles.
Yeah, that Fat Shark is not making.
That Fat Shark is not involved with.
Yeah, we have no reason to believe Fat Shark is in any way involved with anymore. So it really just sounds like totally out of touch. Like, hey, this is something people on this call will buy. You know?
Yep.
So let's continue. As Jeff noted, Fat Shark is, unfortunately, in a sense, I mean, of course, he's stumbling over words here. Let's say how short bursts here. As Jeff noted, Fat Shark is, unfortunately, in a sense, I mean, of course, we're going to come out with better technology. But they are kind of caught on the downside of their most popular product's life cycle.
That is true.
That's an accurate statement.
That is an accurate statement.
Yes.
The implication is that they've got something coming. And I don't think they have something coming. I mean, because HC0 is, look at HC, if they haven't been working, Fat Shark hasn't been working for the last 6 years on the successor to analog video. Carl has been working for God knows how long on HC0. And HC0, in my opinion, was what was going to pull Fat Shark out of the fire. Because Fat Shark has never been a technology innovator in the way that HC0 is, creating a new silicon, a new product. Fat Shark has been very good at certain aspects of what they do. They're very good at, like, industrial design, or whatever you want to call making the goggles. They're very good at sourcing components and building a business around putting those components together. They're very good at QC and manufacturing. I will absolutely give them that. And historically, they have been very good at customer service, although I feel like that is slipping lately. Those are the things they're good at, but none of that will allow them to thrive in a world where analog is dying and DJI is the alternative, because you can't put DJI into a Fat Shark goggle. So what are they going to develop? If they start developing the next HD0, I'll see you in 5 years or 10 years when you've finished and it's too late. You missed the boat.
Yeah. Hard to know what they're actually talking about here or what they will do. Like, I'm expecting to see an HDO3 that's out of touch, but still gives them revenue so they can put on the books revenue and satisfy investors. Like, that's where my head's at.
That's actually a really good, that's interesting. That's a good guess. They need revenue. But what is the HDO3 going to,
will buy it.
What is it going to have that the HDO2 doesn't? Because the HDO2 is state of the art right now in terms of OLED screen, yada, yada, yada.
What optics, like, where are they getting the optics engines from? Like, I don't know. I don't know what you could solve there.
Yeah.
Let's read the rest of these real quick.
Okay.
So he says, and now we got a little bit about Rotor Riot. He says, and actually, Rotor Riot had its best quarter since we acquired the company and almost reached break even this quarter. So Rotor Riot was a real surprise for us. We don't look at that subsidiary as really capturing the market's attention, but it's really a good marketing visibility platform for us. And he says, as Joseph mentioned, Rotor Riot has been doing great. They are growing. They've got some great things they've been doing, but even at just break even, it's a great asset for us because they launch products. People go to Rotor Riot to sponsor episodes. Our biggest competitor in the Chinese drone market is DJI, and they sponsored many, many episodes on Rotor Riot to launch their product. So we think it's a very valuable company because of its marketing power to the early adopters in the drone industry, which are typically working in the drone industry as commercial operators. I thought that was an interesting way they're pitching Rotor Riot. It's basically a platform, a vessel for them to break even and then use it as a platform to develop more like kind of relationships with people and kind of be in the pockets of people who might otherwise be competitors.
It is, and that is accurate. DJI has sponsored many Rotor Riot episodes for the DJI FPV system. It was very surprising to me to hear that Rotor Riot just reached break even, and this is one of those situations where people think, oh, well, I'm friends with Drew, and I am a Rotor Riot pilot, so I must have some behind the scenes information. But I stay out of that stuff. I try to stay out of the business side, and I just show up and shoot episodes, which I kind of don't do that anymore either lately, but be that as it may. But I assume that the Rotor Riot store is profitable, and that's where the money comes from to fly pilots around and make episodes. Like otherwise, now recently Red Cat had their public offering. They raised like $60 million plus, and I was like, oh well, okay, Rotor Riot's probably seeing a chunk of that. But before then, I don't know where Rotor Riot was getting money to make episodes if they weren't profitable on their store. That's the whole, and so I'm really surprised about that.
How I read this is a like basically we're making enough money from the store to fund the videos, and then maybe carrying some debt every year, and then Red Cat bought in with debt, and now they're like finally with everything they're doing and the way they've structured and who's purchasing what and where they've done cuts on videos and how they're spending money, they've been able to do a break even so that the money they're bringing in from the store is paying for all the products, all the employees, all the warehouse, all the static employees, all the management.
I'm just shocked that wasn't happening already. I'm shocked that wasn't happening already.
To me, I bet the video part is a big part of it. And as a company, you're looking at building the value of the brand of Rotor Riot by spending money into the video portion and getting sponsorships and building relationships.
Yeah.
Like that's where my head would go with that. Like just like any other company, it's like Red Cat is like not worried about profit, they're worried about revenue. I think it maybe could be similar for Rotor Riot as long as you have a source of money or a way to
But I don't think they did. I don't have the impression that they did, other than the store. I mean, way back when Rotor Riot was owned by Lauren International, years and years ago, Lauren International was a big company that was involved with flight test. I don't know the exact history. I believe anyway, I don't know that. But when Rotor Riot was formed out of flight test by Chad Kapper and was originally supported by Lauren International, in those first few, however many months or year, I don't know the time frame, where Rotor Riot first came out and it seemed like they were going to Hawaii and they had all this money to make episodes. That was Lauren International injecting cash. And then Kapper took Rotor Riot away from Lauren International, and the cash flow was restricted, and then the tone of the episodes and the expense of the episodes changed. And yeah, a GoPro just turned off somewhere in my room. Cool. So anyway, yeah, I don't have the impression that they had a fountain of cash. But I don't know, like I said at the beginning.
I don't necessarily mean a fountain of cash, but as a company, if you build revenue and you prove to either private investors or a bank that you have a way to have value, you can accrue money for debt.
You could just get loans.
You take your equity that you have.
Valid.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's interesting to know that Rotor Riot wasn't breaking even in some sense of the word, and now they are.
It's also this statement, it does seem that way.
It's also interesting the attitude that they seem to be like, yeah, this Rotor Riot company, nobody really cares about them in the real drone world, but it's good that they're here. Aren't they cute? Pet them on the head.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's finish this up. We got a little bit more about Fat Shark, and I think it kind of wraps everything up a little bit. So Fat Shark is the leader in the goggle space for FPV.
Is it though? Is it though?
If anybody, he says, if anyone saw the Drone Racing League recently on TV, all those pilots are using Fat Shark goggles. And as Joseph mentioned, we're right at the end of their last product cycle, going into this brand new product cycle, which you'll be hearing more about as soon, with some really exciting stuff coming. So that's kind of, these two companies are grouped together and on the consumer side. So this is a question somebody was asking, can you summarize the consumer and commercial parts of your company and how they fit together? And so before, we've talked about how they've talked about the digital system, and this was literally like 3 months ago, I think we were talking about this. They were talking about the digital system as part of their platform. They were talking about Fat Shark working with Skypersonic on the commercial side. They were talking about it's possible that revenues would be split so that half of Fat Shark would be commercial, or half Fat Shark would be consumer and half would be commercial, doing Skypersonic work, selling goggles and things to them. And now, 3 months later, we have what seems to be a total flip, and them saying it's Fat Shark and Rotor Riot make up our consumer side, and that's where we see them. Yeah, I don't know. That's definitely an interesting, but I would say kind of shift. So.
Yeah. This new product life cycle only is valid if you have a new product that you have been developing that is about to release, and I just don't think Fat Shark has that. I'd love to be wrong.
This would presume to say either next quarter or the quarter after they will be dropping a product. So 3 to 6 months, like this.
And it's not just going to be another analog goggle.
Or if it is, it's like, to me, this could totally be another analog goggle. This could be spin on the same fucking thing they've done before. But the question is, can the HDO3 come into a place where you can compete? Because that's the question, is like you said, what are they going to bring in, and what's going to compete, and what's going to be worth having over possibly by then an HD0 goggle that has a great integration, presumably.
Yep.
By then, maybe a new SkyZone goggle, or at least the SkyZone goggle we have already being good and possibly cheaper.
And who knows what Orca might do or might not do.
Yeah, and you have all these used H2O2s and stuff, which honestly, again, like, what are you going to do better than the H2O2? You're probably going to use a similar optical engine. You'll probably use a similar screen. Yeah, there's a lot of questions there. So.
Yeah, it's I got to wonder if Fat Shark is wondering if they just should have like rode that horse off into the sunset, kept selling analog goggles, and now they got Jeff Thompson kicking their ass, saying, "Make money, make products." They actually have to fucking work.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to guess that a large part of how they sold to Red Cat was because of HD0. I don't know that that's true, but that's my gut. Is that a lot of what Red Cat saw was them using HD0 and focusing that technology on their system.
Of course, that makes so much sense.
Right, and they were calling it Sharkbite at the time, and it was a very much like a Fat Shark system and like all that kind of stuff. So if you're pitching to someone who's trying to buy your company, you're going to pitch it like that. And to me, like, if you're these people who are talking in this conversation we've been reading, you're going to buy the shit out of the fact that people are selling you on some fancy digital system that doesn't make any sense. So, I don't know. That's the impression I get.
All right. Well, it's fascinating. But we're going to move on because we're going to run out of time if we just keep chattering about. It's so fascinating, though. We got an update.